shaken yet standing firm.
I was not built to break.
This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It is truly a terrific Tuesday's edition of Talk Today, and we're going to not only put a good foot in the face forward, we're going to try to celebrate, give thanks in all things, and I'm honored that the monthly production of our Mental Health Matters, well, takes place now. Want to know what we're going to talk about? Want to know who our guests are? I'll call Susan at 916 now. Stay tuned, and right after the break, we will tell you.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And of course, the phone lines are open, and it does not matter who's on the other side of the table, whether it's Miss Susan, DJ Linda, Carl Wilson, or sometimes it's Edith. And we put a show, it's him sitting back there. You can call, we'll answer. If we like how you sound, if you just feel right, we'll put you on the air. Right, Susan? No, she says, don't even say that publicly. We equally put anybody on the air. It doesn't matter. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. It's our monthly Mental Health Matters. If I might, say that again to Dr. Alexandra Borden for the wonderful work, the sacrifice, this commitment to this monthly show in and of itself is not just immediately impactful. It has proven to be so beneficial, and I can say this without speaking out of turn, without disclosing. It's benefited me and so many others just listening. The topics cause us to think about other things. Many of us have said, let me reach out to counseling just to talk about something. Life is great, but could it not be better? Mm-hmm. Life isn't that great. Boy, let me speak to someone. So thank you to you, your colleagues, for being our guest, but to you specifically for facilitating every month.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having us on, and I'm very grateful, especially to our panelists. Mr. Terry often joins us, and in each month we have just great guests on, and all that are giving their time, for this cause. And so I really appreciate Radio Cayman allowing us, as well as the guests that we always have as well. And
Terry Dillon, as Dr. Borden shared, to you and other guests, thanks for coming on, because it isn't just a reprieve from a day. Many people don't appreciate why some of us do not even take lunch, because that half an hour or hour, we're like, we could be working, so we work while we eat. But we don't see the importance of chilling for a second. Mm-hmm. Whether we're going to read the comics or something, or just close our eyes, we need that break. So as you're a guest here, you're not taking a break. You have to now go back and make up for it. But this year, in particular, with all the transpired in the last few years, this month of January, where for us, I used to say, and I say now deliberately, let's not make resolutions. Let's make revolutions. Let's transform our thinking, our act. Ernest Ebanks, who I think is a phenomenal example when it comes to personal fitness, I mean, he's what, 90? No, he looks like he's 15. You know, he says if you want to change your body, you got to first change your mind. You know, your mindset, your approach. So getting our act together is important, right? Well, before we ask Dr. Borden, Terry, your perspective. I mean, is it easy? Well, you know what? Opening salvos from you. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here. I hope everybody can tolerate my temporary vocal complication, but I'm fine. And I
thought you were doing an imitation of somebody.
I know. I was thinking, who could I be? And I'm not sure who I could claim.
Your voices come to mind.
We'll find the voice. Yeah, right. At any rate, I'm glad to be here. Very glad to be here. And it's such I don't know if it's different for me, but I always get so fired up and excited about the beginning of a year. I remember when I was a kid in school, getting new pencils and sharpening them, and it was just everything new is going to be happening this school year. And here we've got a new chronological year, and we can do with it as we choose. We've got a lot of environmental stuff going on that's a real problem for us. But we need to not overly focus on it. I'm not saying it's not important. It's all incredibly important, and we need to pay attention. But we also have to remember how blessed we are, how grateful we are, how good things are, that we've got a degree of control over this stuff, and we're doing good. Yeah. We're hanging in. And as has been said, when we want to look at this idea about get your act in gear or get it together, we need to look inside ourselves first, and that's the hard part. That's a real hard part.
Isn't it oftentimes that we will quote things, or we've probably heard it so often that sadly, and I say it sadly, and you guys, guide me if that's inappropriate, that it's become a cliche for us. Even those who may attend church religiously, every Wednesday night Bible study, Sunday morning, Saturday morning, whatever it is. But it's just routine. We're just doing this thing almost automatically without actually consciously looking. So what is it that we heard somebody say once, be the change you want to be? Well, we repeat it, but we don't take ownership, take action. But getting our act together. I mean, how many times have a parent said to me, boy, you got to pull yourself together, get it together. And that's it, right? Yeah. So, Dr. Borden, from that point, January, is it opportune time to get our act together?
Yeah, with the new chronological year, a lot of us are looking at resolutions, revolutions, new goals. I was actually on New Year's Eve, and I shared that I don't really believe in resolutions. So, I think that change can happen at any time, but there is a lot of excitement that comes with this. But I think there's a lot of pressure for that New Year's Day start. And so, like I told people, I was actually starting a new physical challenge, a new fitness challenge, January 4th. And I thought that was brilliant. Don't worry about the first. Take the second to recover. Third, you get set, and then fourth, you go. And I thought that was a great idea.
When you get ready,
I almost danced to it. Yeah, that was not planned. The beginning of the year is a great time for looking back at the last year or two, what's been going on, and looking forward. But I think you guys both hit on two really important things with it coming from inside, right? Because there's reasons why, emotionally, mentally, sometimes physically, why we don't do certain things. So looking at that and figuring out what we really want, but also being accountable, right? It's up to us to make that change as well. And I think that's a big thing as well. A lot of times we get just stuck in feeling like the victim and that things are just kind of happening to us rather than us making it happen. So this is a great time to work on changing our mindset and our approach to things.
Many times perhaps we have societal expectations. We have unrealistic, and we don't know how to manage the expectations and the like. But take education, and just may seem as a tangent, but I always see it to be, tantamount to anything. When we're informed and aware of certain things, so educated about something, we make better choices, better decisions. If we know consciously that this particular food is filled with something, then we may or may not consume it. And if we do, frequently, or to the extent that we do. And so when we talk about making changes in education, I always say, we need to be transformative. People just want to change something, they just want to. And is it then that from our mindset, you want to first improve your body? Well, change your mindset. You want to do something. So getting our act together, is it a process then that we sit and realistically, as you shared, you know what, I'm not going to start on the first because, New Year's Eve, you're probably out late. You may not be able to. You might just have been in a space where the first is this, then the second. Well, you're deciding the 3rd. So why not the 4th or the 7th? But do we need to sit down and plan? Well, how do we go about it? To get first steps. Is there a first step to getting our act together? I mean, for me, it's probably getting your dad to say, "Look, boy, get in order."
But an interesting thing. Just last week, I was talking with a fella I know, and he said, as many of us, he had let it all down over the holidays, and he didn't do any kind of exercise at all. He ate anything in sight, and he drank more than he should.
I told you this in confidence, Terry.
Oh, I'm sorry. We weren't in my office. I thought it was. But as I said, most of us do. We overdo that way. And he said, so he was thinking about it a couple of weeks ago and thought, I want to do something different. I love the word different.
Yeah.
And he thought 2 things. One is about sexism, but he said, it dawned on him, the idea of things like yoga and Zumba, that's just for women. But then he thought about it. He thought about it, and he said, well, wait a minute. I got to go try it.
Yeah.
So he went to 1 class in each. The guy's a fanatic. He said he never felt so good. It was exercise.
Awesome.
It helped his energy levels. It got him going. He said, yeah, I'm still going to go to the gym, but I am so fired up on these new avenues to make a change in my life. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what an outstanding... It's not a resolution or a revolution or anything like that, but it's a matter of just, this is so good for my life, I want to keep doing it.
But see the newness to things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's, as you said, I'm thinking to many of us who may go to the gym and we're doing the same types of exercises, we're seemingly healthy, toned, muscular, whichever. But if we do another exercise that is unfamiliar to us, we may find that it challenges us, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. Actually, I had there's a lot of stigma that goes with yoga, and even I am a woman. I had the same thing. I don't do yoga. It's boring. I had all kinds of things I didn't want to go to, so I went. I realized how hard it was. And so this really is changing how you think about it, right? It's not a woman thing. It's not a boring thing. It's actually really challenging. And I now keep it included in my schedule as cross-training. Yeah. Because it's important to have that downtime, the flexibility, like you were saying, to have the different uses of your muscles as well, the different activities.
Right. So as we come back from this first break, let's see if we can break it down. Because many of us, in our minds, we like things structured. Step 1, step 2, step 3. For some of us, we're all over the place. You watch some people in the kitchen baking something, and they prep before they prep, and then everything's measured out, and they go from step to step. There are others that they pull in, they got pots and pans everywhere, and when you finish it up, it's a hurricane. Now, for those who may work that way and they believe they can function better, great. But for the rest of us that want it to be structured, is there such a thing as step 1 and then step 2? Are there things that you do, whether they're in order or not? Maybe we can share with the people to help us understand that there is a way to approach, getting our act together, the importance of doing so, and perhaps to remind us that, we start today and don't expect that by sunset we've achieved it. It may be, 10 years down the road, a consistent, concerted effort, or we could see it, end of week 1, end of week 4. Can we talk about that? All right. For the winning lottery numbers, dial. No, I'm just kidding. 949-8037 is one of our numbers. 1-800-534-TALK. Want you to be a part of our continued discussion as we return, for this monthly segment of our monthly mental health matters. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Freedom, Kim Brack. Freedom, Little Kim. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
At Subway, we caramel a lot about our customers, so we decided to give you 2 treats in one with the new Caramel Apple Cookie. Enjoy cinnamon apples, caramel bits, and salted caramel crunch baked in, and topped with a drizzle of caramel-flavored icing. Gooey, crunchy, and yummy. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious Caramel Apple Cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert, available for limited time at all Subway locations. Subway. Eat fresh.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome back. Thanks for joining us, Hey, this is a judge-free zone, okay? We judge you, you don't judge us. Just kidding. No, 949-8837, 1-800-534-8255. Our monthly mental health matters, Dr. Alexandra Borden, Mr. Terry Delina, our guest. And the notion of, I think many of us want to get our act together. I joked just then about, judge-free zone, but I think I say that because many of us feel like if we do something or don't do something, how will those people that are close to us perceive that? What will they say? So, substitute the word judge. You're a bit judgy. And then, even if they don't say anything, we're thinking, yeah, they're thinking something. And if it's not even them that we know, there are other people that we don't know. So, is it first and foremost about, forget about what people think, if it's going to be debilitating or hinder us, and try to think about, well, what is good for us? Mm-hmm. So, I asked at the outset, are there steps and strategies? Are there ways to do things? I like to bake. I like more to eat. But the recipes say, combine the dry ingredients and then combine the wet ingredients, then put them together and incorporate this one at a time and slowly and aerate it. And I'm thinking, just put it all together. And sometimes it makes a difference, right? You don't overwhip the wipes because you want the air. But other times it doesn't matter. You just, mix it all together. So, Dr. Borden, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's always the catch, right, is where to start. Mm-hmm. But I think, as we're setting goals for ourselves and getting your act together, what does that actually mean? Mm-hmm. And I will say, so some of the ideas from today are from the book by Sarah Knight, and of course from Mr. Terry's and I's work with clients as well. Mm-hmm. But I would say, and so her first part would be kind of setting time aside for realistic goals. Mm-hmm. But I would say even before that, and looking at your goals, right? Mm-hmm. What do you want, right? What does getting your act together mean for you? Mm-hmm. Is it going to be, so I confessed I actually triple booked myself at some point this week. Is it going to be sorting out your calendar? Mm-hmm. And, I've actually got, I'm loving my Gmail calendar, and so many apps now will link things to it. It's about finding ways to be, to be able to stay more on top of things. So for me, that's what I'm working on.
Okay.
Is it going to be getting to the gym? Is it going to be spending more time with family? Is it going to be being more productive at work? Like, what does it mean for you? Because I think a lot of times it's things like, I want to be healthier. Great.
But even what does that mean? Productive.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And so I'd say, it's taking time to reflect on your values and what's really important to you. Mm-hmm. And then thinking about, what does that actually mean? What does that look like for you? Mm. And you may not care about your weight. You may not care about, getting the VIP award at work, right? There's different things that are important. And I think, that's where the judgment comes in, and even setting our goals.
Right.
As you don't have to pick something that is trendy or something that everyone else is doing, right? It's fair to have something completely different, but thinking about what's important to you and then thinking about what's that going to look like is where you would start.
And Teresa, actually, to weigh in on that, I'm thinking that let's look at it from two perspectives: either education or getting healthy. For many of us, honestly, I think this happens at different triggers in points in our lives. We want this thing, and we want it now. We can talk about being that generation of immediate gratification. But if we were to stop for a second, let's say education, and we're going to get a degree. It's an undergrad degree, it takes 2 years, 4 years. It's a postgrad degree, it takes a year or 3. If we don't start, at some point we'll never get there. And we may think, well, it's going to take 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. What we don't appreciate is that at the end of that particular goal, we've gone through the steps and we've now have that degree, that the friends and family would have seen it and appreciated it. They may not have watched the service, the sacrifice, and all the other things to take over the years to get there. Just like with weight loss. How many of us will see friends and family go, whoa, you look good, you lost weight? Guy, you have lost weight for the last 3 years, right? This has been a concerted, consistent effort. But they only now seen it then. For you, it's been a gradual process. Half a pound every month or every year, whatever it is, right? I said that to share that there was a lady once, she was telling us in a group, she lost, I think, 50 pounds, right? And that was over a period of about 5 years. 50, or no, actually, it was a little more than that. And when you did the math, it was maybe half a pound a month. It wasn't much. How did she lose it? She said, well, one day, you know what? I realized that I got where I'm at over decades. So it might take as long to get back where I was. Started to, move, exercise, just walk, consider what she should eat. And over a period of time, not a fad diet. And she's been at that weight consistently for 3+ years at that point in time, that presentation to us. She said, it made sense, right? No, we didn't see it because some of us hadn't paid attention. And those that were close couldn't realize it because it was just gradual. So Terry, does that make a difference that we don't try to achieve overnight what may normally take, sometimes decades?
It makes a ton of sense, without a doubt. One of the things I've found both in my life and dealing with other people, we have a tendency, I say we, I mean human beings in general, tend to look at whether it's a project or a plan or whatever it is, and we see it as this really big task. And what that sets up is the old enemy called procrastination. Yes. I don't know if today's a good day to start that because I only got 40 minutes. We find a way to back it off, and so many of us do that on a regular basis, and we got to be able to say, what part of this can I start now? Dr. Bowden, you said something a few minutes ago that made me just light up inside. You said something really different. And I think that might be one of the best mindsets we can come up with. What can I do in a different way? We have needs. I have needs to eat food. Sure. How can I do it differently? But how fast do I eat? What do I eat? When do I eat? Yeah. Driving down the road with the phone in one hand and a burger in the other is not a good idea for many levels.
But much easier than trying to eat pasta while you drive. I don't recommend you try it.
I know. When you see, did you ever slurp that last noodle up and the end gets you in the eye? Yes. That's hard when you're driving.
Worse, it hits the guy in the back.
That's a long noodle.
I'm just kidding. Well, it's bad luck to cut your noodles, right?
But seriously, to be able to take these tasks, like you said, getting a degree, 4 years, oh my God, that's going to overwhelm me. I can't believe it. Not. How about, hey, maybe I'll take this one course. It sounds really interesting.
One course.
I'll see one course. I'll see what it's like, and I can remember if I choose to, I can stop halfway through and say, no, that's not for me, and find another course to take. Yeah. We get too rigid, locked in. I know we got to stay focused and work on things, but we got to have that availability that I can change if I want to, because look at how the world's been changing for years now.
Someone once joked, say, how does an encyclopedia salesman make a living? One volume at a time. I can't take credit for that joke. I thought it was funny, man. She's not usually funny. But
people probably don't know what encyclopedias are anymore. I worry about the kids who's coming up these days.
Wow, now I feel
it's not even a disc.
It's a book. It's actually, what's a book?
What's a book?
No.
But that's true, you know, and it is finding the little things and breaking it down into smaller steps. Actually, and I think education is a great one. That's a question I often get asked. And my favorite thing to tell people is I graduated every 2 years for 10 years.
Yeah.
If anyone knew me going through school, and I love Cayman, it was really hard for me to leave. I couldn't commit to more than 2 years at a time. So that's what I did. Yeah. And luckily it worked. So, but it's breaking things down into smaller steps. Like, you know, like Ms. Terry said, it's taking a course here, starting maybe even with like a certificate program or an online course, and then working up.
But I mean, that's a good analogy with education, and I think back to what the lady was sharing, if I recall it correctly, with her eating. So she stated that, you know, like a lot of us, we are at a desk, we feel a little lull, we take a handful of something, for some of us, very sweet, you know, sugary, and it boosts us up for 30 minutes, and then we look for more, right? And she said she just went from that to, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day eating, but sensibly. So a small portion out. She had to be very structured, very strategic. And she went through the day with small, bite-sized chunks of food. So she never had that, you know, that binging, as it were.
A perfect example of what you're talking about is a good friend of mine who had what I guess a lot of us would call a pot belly. He wasn't generally an oversized guy. He wasn't, bad word I know, but a fat guy. But he had this big belly. And it wasn't a beer belly. I can attest to that.
Is he the guy with the big belly man? That one?
Big belly man. The big belly man, exactly. But he had been trying for years. I knew this guy trying, couldn't work. I thought, hey, it's your physiology. Maybe you got to live with it, whatever. And then I saw him one time, and it was like a third of it was gone. I said, what'd you do? He said, I quit dieting. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I was doing these diets. Diets don't work for me. He said, what I had to do was change my mindset, as you've been talking about. I changed my mindset, and all I did was anytime I started feeling hungry, I would ask myself the question, what can I have to eat that's good for me?
Nice.
And he got into fruits more, and some vegetables, and some healthy snacks, and some wise eating. And by not forcing himself into that drudgery of, oh my God, I got to lose 72 pounds, or, you know, people set these rigid, huge goals that scare them half to death. And it's a matter of saying, maybe I'll just eat a little differently. And like the woman you're referencing, in time, there you go. It works. But it's an individual thing. That's what we got to remember.
But you referenced... Sorry, Dr. White.
No, I was just going to say, and I think that flexibility to try new things and to step away from things that aren't working is really important as well.
You shared the word just now. You said procrastination. And I think a lot of us see that as a bad word. And in and of itself, it probably is. And I say this maybe to invite you, if you don't mind, for some free therapy here. For me, I've always been conscious, very deliberate. Hang on, you know, that thing needs to be done, but does it need to be done now? What is it about that thing that can just hang on a second? It's not procrastination in my mind. It was me stepping back to try to consider. Now, for others, the pressure was, come on, you know, that report needs to be now. You need to write this thing. You need to get started. And normally you would. So within us, if we get to learn ourselves and we step away from something without feeling that pressure of completing the task then and there because we don't want to be a procrastinator, I mean, that's a horrible thing. Is it a way to get our space and our place and our mindset into this groove where we understand what is procrastination when you just don't want to do it? And that has happened to, at least, you know, to me, sometimes, oh, I just don't want to do that. As opposed to your mind saying, you know what, give it a little time. Is that a subtle difference? Am I conflating the two? Have I confused them? Where you actively don't do anything consciously and you're not procrastinating versus when you are because you're just not feeling.
I mean, I can see the difference.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think it's fair to consider and to, if you're making kind of like a plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, then that makes sense. But with procrastination, you know, a lot of times there's something getting in the way. And that's something that I think a lot of humans struggle with. And so, you know, so if there's something that you keep putting off, it might be worthwhile to just figure out why, right? And I hate that word. the Y word's not great. But what's getting in the way?
What's causing you to not want to tackle that thing?
Exactly. And I think, and I think that's where the breaking it down, like Mr. Terry said, can be really helpful, because actually one of the things I really liked actually from Miss Knight's book was I think actually about cleaning and breaking down your house, and it's true. So like during quarantine, this is what I did. You pick a little area that maybe to fill that 40 minutes, like you said, and you just focus on getting that done today, and that's it. So so that way, but sometimes there's other things as well. Like going to the gym is a big one. And maybe it's not that you're just lazy, but it's going to be changing the way you exercise. Right. So seeing what's getting in the way.
And I think whether it's cleaning, whether it's studying, time management comes into play, the overwhelming feeling. I don't know if that still happens, but you always heard from people, I got to spring clean. And so they wait until what is spring. Now, if you live in Cayman, is there ever spring, right? But why are you waiting for a week or a day to declutter something that has taken decades? Now, for some of us, if we start in room 1 and we have 10 rooms in our house, by the time we come back down to go through all the rooms, room 1's needs it again. But 10 days may have passed, or the month may have passed. So small bite-sized chunks, even to clean it. Who knew? All right. We got a break to take, but if you want to quickly jump in, Mr. Terry, if not, she's like, come on, take the break, guy. Take the break, guy. Take the break. Let me take the break.
I'll take her side. Take the break.
Boy, you wise, boy, you wise. You like me, same might be handsome, but you're smart. All right, we're going to pause and take the break. If you wish to call and share your thoughts, we want to help you to get your act together. And if it means that you get a better you, if you get more enjoyment out of life, more fulfillment, if you can eat chocolate and savor it, hey, share. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
20 years.
Remember when Crew Road had no median and Linford Pearson was only 2 lanes?
We do.
When Dirty Reeds was down the street?
We do.
We have been there for the falls, the growth, and the rise. When your body and mind needed to change, Powerhouse Gym has been here. We've skated with you. Your first date, your daughter's first time on skates, your son's first strike. From football to squash, to karate and hockey, to bowling and concerts, and everything in between.
For 20 years,
so much has changed, some for the good and some not so much. Through it all, King Sports Center has been here for you, for Cayman.
King Sports Center, celebrating 20 years as Cayman's home for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
The Overseas Government Scholarship deadline for the 2022-2023 academic year is Monday, 31st January. To apply for an overseas government scholarship or learn more about the various scholarship programs before the deadline, please visit the recently upgraded scholarship application portal at www.moescholarships.gov.ky or email the Scholarship Secretariat Unit at scholarships@gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. It's our monthly Mental Health Matters, and we're talking about getting your act together. Perhaps for some, they may be offended. But what do you mean telling me to get my act together? Of course it's together. Others may say, guy, I never had it together for the last 40 years. You think I start now? Different, strokes for different folks. So Dr. Alexandra Boyd and Terry Delina joins us. Is it easier said than done? Or is it that by saying this, it may inspire people, encourage them, get them to feel motivated or respectful? Would it inflame and offend them? I tried to joke and jest when I said it then, but there's some when you say, hey, you got to pull it together, man. You need to get it together. What's wrong with you? You're 40, you're 50, you're 14. When are you going to?
And I think just in the way you said, like those last four statements, they're so judgmental.
Yeah.
And they can make people just put up a wall and say, don't give me that.
Yeah.
But when you offer, hey, there can be something better. Let's say I have somebody come in my office, which is, you can take this into regular life as well. And they say, I've got a real problem with alcohol. I got to do something about my drinking. All I say to them is, you're telling me there's something you want to change. I don't go into this, let me put a name on it, let me label it, let me do all that. I just say, so there's something you want to change. How much do you want to change it? We start looking at the idea of change, what's different, what'll be better, what'll make your life happier, some of these positive things. We were talking about how to, take on tasks that seem big. What flashed in my head, for Christmas, one brother and his wife gave me a beautiful puzzle, a 1,000-piece puzzle.
Oh, cool.
Now, I've done puzzles. I like puzzles. I've not been a puzzle fanatic, but I enjoy puzzles. I haven't done one probably in 8-10 years. But I got this thing out and I poured it out and I thought, those are the smallest pieces I've ever seen in my life. But I started thinking about, am I going to just say, oh, this is too tough, not today and all that stuff. What I did was I said, you know what, I'm going to do my best to get 5 pieces connected. I didn't put time on it. I didn't put anything else. I thought, I'm going to sit down here and just look at colors, there's a sky, okay, what? And I started going and I got going. And I realized if I don't set like what I have to do, it's a lot easier for me to do what I got to do. Right. There's, of course, things in life we have to do. I understand that. But in looking at this kind of thing, it's, again, breaking it down to what I can get done.
But let me
ask you. If I want to put 12 pieces together, it might take me 3 hours.
You referenced earlier, and I'm glad that you picked up on that, because it's not just what we say, it's how we say it, when we say it, whom we say it. And, give us an example. I was saying something the other day to someone, and my first thought was that, well, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? Then I thought, let me ask the question, how can we make it better? It's the same thing,
Right. Exactly.
Right? I mean, words, right? Now, there are some people who would say, oh, you just, being condescending, you're being polite now. We just don't be direct. No, I'm trying to bring you to a place of conversation that gets away from this level of negativity. But to your point, if a person, let's just use drinking for instance, do they now need to acknowledge for ourselves individually, take ownership, take responsibility that this is an issue? My first thought when you said that was a friend who said to me, someone asked him, so you're drinking? He said, depends, you buying? They don't have a problem. Right? The only problem they got is they don't have enough money, 2 hands and 1 mouth. That's the idea of a drinking problem. They're like, 2 hands and 1 mouth. So they joke and jest to mask it. Do we now need to acknowledge that we want to do something, weight, education, organize our schedule? Do we need to acknowledge it, that there's something that we want to address?
There's a psychologist from years ago named Albert Ellis came up with an amazing concept. And what he says is that every single thing a human being does fits in 3 different categories. It's either a thought or a feeling or an action. It's all we can do is think, feel, and act. And he said one of the things is we ought to look at where our thinking's coming from. And are we actually living with belief systems that aren't doing us any good? And are we going to go ahead and make decisions that, that's too big for me to work on, or that'll take me too long? Where does that kind of thinking come from? Change that thinking. And you said this early on in the show. If you change your thinking, you can take on almost anything. And I think we got to look at that. And one of the ways we change our thinking is, you just said it, change the words we're using. Instead of saying, I could never do that, say, this might take me a while.
But then is it that for some of us, we put too much pressure on ourselves? We believe, just New Year's Eve and we want to go out, we got plans, and all of a sudden we're, the man even, we think it's the woman only, but the man, he's in the mirror, he's going to shave and he's going to do his thing, and for whatever reason, he's looking and go, well, you're not the handsome, charming, 25-year-old that you were. Some of us, you weren't even that at that age, but it's a different story. And for whatever reason, we have this negative perception, we have this connotation of what others expect of us, and we don't see that. So we may say, well, it's an issue of self-confidence and self-esteem, but it could just be an overwhelming thing that we can't do anything about what is going to transpire. Now, if it's that you're getting old, for me, it's like, oh, thank God, I'm living to see another day. I'm getting old. That's great. This is the youngest I'll ever be, and this is the oldest I am for now. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, I'm a day older. So is it mindset? Michael talks about mind over matter. Perception, perspective, Dr. Warden?
Yeah, no, I think that the way you think about things is a huge thing. I think both Mr. Turner and I both do the cognitive behavioral therapy, and that's one of the things that we talk about is cognitive restructuring or changing the way you're thinking about things. So when it comes to setting goals, looking for the positives. So rather than not doing something, it's like, for example, rather than things like not drinking sodas, it's me things like drink more tea. It's one of mine. Okay. But so framing things in the positive can be helpful. But definitely, easing off some of the pressure. If you have to have all the education and a quit date and this and this and this before you start, you're not going to start. Yeah. So that's where I think, all the success stories that have been shared on the show, I think the big thing is start small and do something that can be consistent. Right. Okay. And that's where what you want is not a huge change right now. You want to start making small changes each day that you can keep up, so it becomes a lifestyle change rather than just a resolution for a week. Yeah. So let me flip the coin over, because I think many of us, we can think of, and we even give them a label, motivational speakers. We attend seminars as to how to be the better you and so on. And then we come away, you think to the football team where the coach is saying, hey guys, we got 15 minutes left of the game. We got to, score this. We got to do that, and pumps you up. And we've all watched the movies, right? And that is maybe our expectation as to how to motivate, to incentivize. Is there another way? And is that crass? Is it just the reality of life? Hey, guy, can I use your word to use? You're fat. You're bald. You're short. Sorry, I didn't mean to be looking up. I know I'm all three. I didn't mean to be looking in the mirror, right? But we see that, and that's what we say to ourselves, that we have this negative image of ourselves. Anyway, Dr. White, I see you. Yeah, no, because that really works against everything, right? Because then we feel bad about ourselves, and then what we're going to do, we're not going to go work out if we feel like that. We're going to go get some ice cream or whatever our comfort food is. So watching what we say to ourselves, because we talk to ourselves more than anyone else. So watching what we say to ourselves is a really important thing. And that's where, and if it's not like you can never say anything negative to yourself again, no, right? Again, we want to get away from very black and white thinking, right? To shades of gray is where we're going to be living, or using all the colors in the crayon box is one of my when the women I used to work with said, and so it's going to be stepping away from that very black and white thinking to looking for little things you can do each day, beginning to shift our mindset. If we know that we're chronically negative, which can come just from being a human, we tend to look for things that aren't good enough, or things that we need to change, or things we still need to do. Or even with things like anxiety, depression, it's going to be at even another level. But even just looking for things that go well each day can help.
So, sorry, Terry?
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned the idea of motivational speakers, and it clicked in my mind. I probably heard it somewhere. We got to be our own motivational speaker, because we can put things in a different way, as we've been talking about, and it energizes people. It gives them the idea, I can get there, I can do well. And to get the F word of failure out of your mind. It's not about a failure. It's about maybe now you need to look at it a different way, approach it in a different way, those kinds of approaches. And to just watch how we're treating ourselves. How often, it was so many years ago, I realized if I even dropped something, I would cuss at myself.
Yeah. We are our worst critic.
And it just slow down. Yeah, man. Everybody drops something.
We've got a break, Dr. One.
I was just going to add, if that's okay. I think if the motivational speakers are often sometimes a great way to start something, but making sure that it's going to be sustainable, and that's where even things like there's even apps and things that you can get that have that each day. right? Either motivational things. You guys have all heard me rave about my Fitbit because it gives little prompts and things as you go throughout the day. It celebrates if you get to any of your goals. So, you know, there's apps that can be helpful to keep up the motivation, because it's good to have a good start, but the consistency is going to be what's most important.
Right. So when we come back, I mean, we are recognizing that we are our worst critics at times. So we should perhaps be our best cheerleaders. And we hold ourselves sometimes to unrealistic.
And we don't need those are very black and white words.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're going to be a cheerleader for ourselves.
Exactly. So let's talk about that and see where it takes us, right? All right, after the break, I'm going to look for some sea salt and dark chocolate. I may find it. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The Public Health Department is now offering additional clinics in districts to conduct confirmation PCR testing for persons who test positive on lateral flow tests. And Bush Sports Complex, West Bay, 1 to 2 p.m., Bodden Town Civic Center, 1 to 2 p.m., and South Sound Community Center, 1 to 3 p.m., will be available daily. Any person testing positive on a lateral flow test must receive a confirmation PCR test from the Health Services Authority from one of those clinics only. In international news, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has denied claims he was told in advance that a Bring Your Own Booze party held in the garden of his residence at the height of a national lockdown was a potential breach of COVID-19 restrictions. Johnson continues to face criticism from politicians and the public over several parties allegedly held at 10 Downing Street, which are now the subject of an inquiry. U.S. President Joe Biden put the full weight of his presidency behind voting rights action last week, heading to Capitol Hill in an effort to push Democrats to change Senate rules to pass legislation. Vice President Kamala Harris, whom Biden tapped to take the lead on passing voting rights legislation in June, wasn't there. And it's still too early to predict whether Omicron's rapid spread will help push coronavirus from the pandemic phase to a more manageable endemic phase. But I would hope that that's the case, Dr. Anthony Fauci said Monday. A disease that is endemic has a constant presence in a population, but does not affect an alarmingly large number of people or disrupt society, as typically seen in a pandemic. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Dr. Alexandra Borden. I honestly trust and pray that I say this as appropriately and respectfully as I have tried to. Your constant willingness to help us facilitate this monthly discussion is invaluable. I find it to be absolutely beneficial. You brought on, as you reach out to your colleagues every month, a wonderful panel. This month, Mr. Terry Delaney, for coming on. Because I think if we're just listening now, hopefully people, when they hear a topic, will get your act together, that they sit, and if this is not the way to phrase it, let me know. As I have done, internalize it, look at it and say, okay, what can I do that makes it better for me, and as a result, add greater value so I can help others. We've heard it so often that it's unfortunate. I think we don't take it on board. Put on your mask first before you put on somebody else's. Very few of us would actually do that. I can see the parent making sure the child is okay. Mm-hmm. And I say that to emphasize that I think that if we were to, let's use relationships or romantic relationships or good friends, if we were to be service-driven and do the utmost for that person, and that person in return doing their utmost for us, that we'll find that nobody's lacking. And it's not even that you're trying to outdo because you're looking for a reward. You're just giving that person everything. I remember long ago when I was as big a sinner as I am now, and I was in church more often. You think you would be sinning more, you'd be in church more, but it's not the way it is. And there was a sermon about, you give your all to your partner gives to you, nobody goes without. And that has resonated with me all this time, in that if we do that, so is that something that is unrealistic? Is it ill-advisable that, take spouses, the one does something, and not pretentious, not with an expectation. You leave a little note, hey, have a great day, I know you like chocolate, here's a little, something sweet. Maybe it's not that. Maybe you come home and you go, wow, like, for argument's sake, Dr. Barton, you guys sit and listen to us go on all day. You must have it, tension in your temples and stuff. Your child, your spouse comes and say, hey, smell this particular oil, it relaxes you, rub your shoulders. Once it's wanted and welcome. Should that something that we should consider? We see companies doing the same with their employees in terms of reward and recognition, motivation, incentive. A corporate retreat, they do a family fun day, little things to try to build and to show appreciation. But if we do it on a personal level, you with your spouse, 2 siblings, instead of being sibling rivalry, they'd be sitting lovingly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm definitely a believer in that we get back what we put out, and helping others and looking after others does so much, not only for them but also for us, right? Because in that way we feel good by being able to help someone. Hopefully they are responsive and appreciative. They might reciprocate, but even so, even if they're just grateful, you helping them feels good for us. It helps to improve the relationship as well. And so in that way, it really benefits everyone.
Okay.
And I think, and not doing it for them to do the same thing back, but just giving it, knowing that at some point it will come back to you can be helpful.
Good follows good, Mama says, right? So tell me, but there are those of us, well, you jump in and I certainly won't take you off your train of thought, but there are those of us that, we know, we give, and the person will take, whoever that person is, right? You can't extend the warranty on the product or service that the customer is ever happy. What do you mean I want to get a 10-year warranty? Guys, they don't have a 1-year life expectancy in this product. It's a consumable. Well, I want a 10-year warranty.
I know. It's frustrating and it's confusing. And some of the things that have been recently said in this panel, a word that keeps popping in my head like a little red light off to the side is the word balance. And I think about every single thing we do, whether you're hang gliding, scuba diving, walking down the street, anything, balance has to do with it. And we got to look internally at that as well. We were talking about the motivational speaker, being the motivational speaker. At the same time, we got to balance that with some degree of being creatively and positively critical to let you know, hey, this isn't good. You don't want to do this. We got to be honest with that, but not that beating myself up, not that rudeness, like a bully.
Yeah.
But to be able to say, yeah, this is something I got to quit doing. It's a big mistake. If we can get that balance going, we're going to be so much more comfortable in almost everything we do.
And I think it comes back to what we were saying. We are our probably worst critics, right? In that what we do often, the way we look at things. Now, I'm prayerful that those listening won't take this as their affair and, we all sit around the campfire and sing some song. But it's about being deliberate, being diligent, being very, not just positive and proactive, but conscious. I've sat down over the Christmas, I don't know about anybody else, and I looked at the cassava cake and go, you know what, I don't even need another bite, but I've eaten almost the whole, cake. I can't complain about it after that. How you feel, because nobody forced you to do it. You're a big boy. You should know balance, moderation comes into play, but easier said than done. Now, maybe come February, not January, maybe we'll start back to exercise. So, Terry?
But there's also a matter of what's your perspective on it. If I want to take a look at a particular cake and whether I want to take another bite or not, and I want to say, no, I'm not going to take another bite, is that about tonight or the rest of my life?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because we can overwhelm ourselves. And I've heard this kind of thing, and I've said this kind of thing. I'll never eat ice cream again the rest of my life. Or, these extreme, pretty much absurd statements that we later violate, and then we kind of feel bad because here we made this almost promise, and we didn't follow through. And then again comes the idea of balance. To not only say, no, I'm not going to have another bite of that cake, to be able to say, right now. It has to do with what's going on right now, the present, and not overdo it and burden ourselves with things that we can't accomplish.
And likewise, the recovery. So if you do eat the cake, knowing that even though that wasn't on my diet plan for, that I'm on now, I enjoyed it while I had it, and it's time to get back on track. So allowing yourself the flexibility that things are going to happen. It's okay to take a break or have a cheat day, but to get back to it the next day, not end up with, feeling like a failure because of it, which is a danger with the absolutes, or what we call dichotomous thinking.
Yeah, and that whole thing of just even the study of change, the idea of change in human beings. People can make a resolution or whatever you want to call it. They can come around that cycle of change doing really well. What exactly happens in the time when they break the new resolution? Do they give up totally? Yep. And say, that's it, I had a cigarette, I'm going to go buy a carton of cigarettes? Or do they have a pre-plan that says, here's what I'll do if I smoke again?
Right. So let me then ask two things immediately. The idea of goal setting and the like. In business, way back when they would talk about, having goals that are attainable, that are measurable, goals that are realistic, right? But even before we get to that, the notion that as individuals, we're increasingly becoming consciously aware that there needs to be a level of accountability. So for the individual, are the same things applicable as it is for the business, or for the individual, relative to goal setting, relative to being accountable, looking for some sort of, I'll use the word validation, confirmation, and then do you need a sort of a partner? You use scuba diving, for instance. The sense that I think is having a buddy system. So you would exercise and having a partner, this company. But that person may call you, hey, I know it's 5 o'clock and I know it's a cold snap in Cayman right now, it's wintry. Let's still go for that walk that we would do ordinarily, just because it's raining, because it's cold. Hey, we still got to do it. So are those things still important for that attainment of that goal, of that continued sustained effort?
I believe they certainly are. We are social beings. There's nothing wrong with being a, quote, loner. There are people that like to be alone, and that's great. But generally speaking, we do things better as a society. Socially, and that includes, I think I want to go for a walk, I'm going to call my friend and see if they want to walk with me. I mean, diving, you got to. You don't go diving alone, period.
Exactly, yeah.
But there's other things where you do say, hey, I'm determined, I want to change my weight. You've talked before about it. How about if we just chat twice a week about what we're doing and how we're doing? Yeah. So, it's important to have that sense of somebody who is your support system.
But you talk about those of us who are loners, and we see that in people. I'm not talking about the U.S. even the news. Yes, he always kept to himself. He was a loner. No, I'm not talking about those guys. Right? There you go. I tried to jest.
I mean, that's for another show, because there's a lot happening to those poor guys.
Yes.
And they do create a lot of problems.
There you go.
But I'd say with flexibility again, I don't like to work out with people, so I think I'm one of the loners, especially with working out.
Right.
I do enjoy classes with people, and I will go to classes. But if I'm going walking or running, I don't like people with me.
You need a quiet time.
Right. Yeah. But I joined actually an online group with this fitness challenge that I've been doing, and I actually found that really helpful. So that's why, like they said, it might just be catching up twice a week. Maybe they're not going walking with you. For many people, though, having someone that's actually going to be there with you, they actually really enjoy. So a lot of people find that helpful to have a workout buddy.
Okay. Is that, if I might, please forgive me, the online, is it the the accountability, for want of a better word? The fact that you have this thing that you do, and you're doing it there, and then it's the others. I'm thinking to my own space, there are certain things I prefer to do by myself. There's certain things that I wouldn't even venture. Not just diving, right? But even fishing, but even reading. Reading things is solo sport. But if I read the book that you were reading or that you've read, we can talk about it, right? So even that.
In that regard, it's been amazing to me over the years. I will have a couple I'm working with or have challenges in the relationships, and I might mention a book that's really good. You could get a lot of information from this. I think you should read this. Okay. They'd come back in like a week or two later, and they would have totally different perspectives on what they read.
Yeah.
And what I've started doing is saying, here's a good book. I think you could get a lot out of it, but I don't think it'll have much value unless you read it to each other. Both of you sit down and somebody read 5 pages, somebody read 5, just so that you can integrate what's going on and talk about it at the time, because it's about communication. It's not about go to separate rooms and read this book and don't talk about it till you come back to my office. That's ridiculous. And it's about try to get the activity to fit what your goal is supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's helpful as well, I guess, kind of like how group therapy, like, you know, being able to hear from other people. So especially if you have a friend that's maybe already made some changes that you really appreciate, and then maybe a friend that maybe you're a bit further on than them, then you're able to see the changes. And then you're able to pass on information. Then you feel like, you know, even though you're not at your goal, you have good information to share, and it helps to empower you in your journey as well. And it's once people start to notice things, that's where sharing goals tends to help us to stick to them. If people ask and follow up or comment, or, you know, I've noticed that, you know, that you've been, you know, making better choices at lunch, and that's great, you know, and being able to recognize things, that helps to reinforce what we've been doing.
So whether it's employment, exercise, or education, many of us sometimes look at somebody else. Education, that person has a PhD in, you know, 5 professional qualifications. Yeah, but that person is 65. They've been studying for the last, you know, 25, 35, 40 years, right, or more. You know, just not even entering high school, and you expect to get that. You know, well, work towards it, but don't get it tomorrow. Education, employment, exercise.
And I would say, even with that, you know, if the goal is the degree, then that's not really helpful. It's what do you want to do with your life, right? Because I work with a lot of students, and that's always my first question, because a lot of the really ambitious ones been there. It's like, I'm going to get my doctorate. Great. But what do you want to do? Right? That's for some of us, if you want to do psychology, and through the U.S., that's absolutely necessary. But if not, if you're just wanting to do therapy or counseling, there's other options. If you're wanting to do research, there's other options. And so I think knowing what the bigger goal is can be helpful, because the degree shouldn't be the end goal. And that can help to kind of make other decisions along the way as you go.
Developing personal knowledge, the personal edification that comes from whatever that thing is. You know, there are some of us that exercise, not because we're entering a competition, not even so much that, you know, we're mindful of an importance to our health, you know, whether it's physical, mental, otherwise, but because, you know, that's what we like. Some is, you know, it's vanity.
Well, and I think figuring out what's in it for you, your why, is really important. Some people work out to spend time with friends, right? And they do team sports, right? I like to say I like to focus on what my body can do. I found a new sport I absolutely love, which is challenging in aerial acrobatics, and you know, and it's amazing what you can do. Things that you think I could never do that, you can. And so, you know, it's finding out what it is for you, right? Because just watching the scale is not rewarding. You know, waiting 4 years until you get your degree is not rewarding. You know, so figuring out what it is for you. That's a lot of the students, we try to do like professional experience, so they can get a taste of it, right? And so you can get an idea of what's going on, right? The first time you get a compliment on, you know, on your changed healthy eating behaviors or losing weight or anything like that, that helps to reinforce it. Getting to share with someone about a presentation you just did at school can be helpful. You know, anything that goes well and being able to share about it can help to bring it to life and give you a taste of what it's going to be like, as opposed to just waiting.
Well, we got to final break, and as we come back, maybe not only conclude the discussion and recap, but must invite people to appreciate that this is important. This is, again, my perspective, individual responsibility, but a willingness to look within ourselves to be the better us, so that at the end of the day, it's about what makes our quality of life that much better. All right. 949-8037 or a Flow toll-free call, 1-800-534-8255. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
In 1895, the ship the Prince Frederick wrecked on the south coast of Cayman Brac, carrying the young sailor Samuel Sidney Saunders. Saunders would later choose to remain in the Sister Islands, eventually marrying into a Caymanian family. Although not highly educated himself, Saunders was instrumental to the education system of the Sister Islands, having taught in both Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. He would start a private school in Little Cayman, was district constable of the Sister Islands, and opened a school in Stake Bay following the 1932 storm. In the 1930s, the school was attended by Captain Charles Kirkernel. Ironically, Captain Kirkernel's father attended Saunders School in Little Cayman a generation earlier.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. In a few minutes left in this segment of our monthly mental health matters, and then we'll have some open line, I believe. Well, we'll see. I just might decide to go fishing, or as they say in West Bay, go fishing. 949-8037 if you want to shout and join us. Dr. Alexandra Borden and Mr. Terry Delina are our guests. And the idea of getting our act together, hopefully for some people, it isn't as daunting. Maybe as we've shared, take it off in, I use the phrase, in bite-sized chunks. Because we go back to the eating that we engage in over Christmas. I probably eat 15 pounds of meat, but not in one sitting. And it probably wasn't over 15 days. Right? Some people said, geez, I did that in one day, in 1 hour. Just kidding. But it was a month of eating, as December rolled in, and 15 pounds later. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's where, having some compassion for yourself is really important as you're making changes. You might kill it in the gym for the first 3 days. You can be tired and sore.
Yeah.
Right? And so having some compassion for yourself, it's been a while. It's been a few weeks, a few months, few years since you've worked out, whatever it's been. And so maybe taking that day to maybe go and do, I'm a big believer in habits.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so I think that's where, if it's going to be walking for 10, 15, even to 21 minutes improved moods, I'd recommend doing at least 25. So that if that's something that you can do each day, then do that. Take an active recovery day to try to keep up the habits. But having some compassion for yourself is important, right? And that will help to give the breathing room for the flexibility that we're talking about to allow you to stick with the goals for the longer term.
And I think that's stay in power, as it were. Because many of us, and the exercise is a great thing. We talked about the person who's doing exercise and then doing something else. In their mind, what do you mean? I'm in the gym every day. I'm doing this thing. And then you say, well, have you tried this type of exercise? Oh, when they do it, they go, ooh, that's hard. They may come away with a real appreciation for exercise and how much better they can be. Or they may be beat up and go, I can lift 1,000 pounds with my little finger. And you mean to tell me I can't do a handstand? Yeah, guy, balance. It's a whole different thing. Right?
Yeah, but even getting back into the classroom is difficult, right? And so having compassion for yourself with that. I will say I love the older students. They bring a lot to the table because they have so much experience, but I know it can be difficult getting back into the studying routines as well. So any changes we're making, there's going to be growing pains. If it's okay, I'd like to take just a minute to go through the Smarter Goals model.
Yes.
You guys probably heard of SMART goals from trainings at work, but they've actually added an ER to it. But as you're setting goals, I think this is important. And while I don't use this exact setup when I work with clients, for my training, we do use a lot of these principles when we're setting goals. Like I said, the goal is not to be happy. It's if you're happy, what's that going to mean, right? Is it going to be going back to school? Is it going to be getting more exercise? Is it going to be eating healthier? Is it going to be getting more sleep? Is it going to be working on how we're thinking about things? So the first part is being specific. And so it's, what exactly does that mean? What changes are you wanting to make? Have it be measurable, and that's really important. So this makes it a behavioral goal at this stage, right? Because exercising more is great, but is it going to be, like I said, the 20 minutes of walking perhaps? That way we can know if we've done it or if we haven't. And it might be 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. There's flexibility in how you do it. Something achievable. If you don't have 30 minutes, or if you've never exercised in your life, then that might be too much. So making sure it's something that's realistic with what's going on. So you don't want to set yourself up for failure, right? Like I'm never going to eat, was it ice cream, donuts, whatever it is, I'm never eating that again. It's not realistic, right? Because you're human and things come up. So have it be achievable, have it be relevant, so something that is important to you. That's what I was saying, while everyone's making a lot of health goals or work goals, have it be important to you. I love technology, but some of my friends, their goals are to not have technology. And actually there's apps to help you do that too. So
if that's not
there's apps that will shut off Facebook and social media. Have it be relevant, so something important to you, and that's where that reflection on your goals is important. So even when I set goals with clients, it's people always tell me I should quit drinking, right? Is that really important? If it's not a health hazard, is that really your goal? Is that really important to you? Or could we look at maybe doing something else that might be driving the drinking? Maybe it's going to be looking at, building better relationships. Have it be timely. So have a time frame for it to reassess, right? If in 2 weeks that's not working for you, right, that's when you evaluate, is it working, is it not, and then readjust. I think that part is really key. So those are the 2 steps that have been added, which is that, get in, is it working, is it not, what can we do differently to have us be more likely to be successful? And I think that's where having either a coach or a mentor, a counselor or a therapist can be helpful as we're beginning to make changes, because so we sometimes get stuck in our ways and our old habits, and so it can be helpful to have someone else there just to bounce ideas off of. Even things like I quit drinking soda, and to just go straight to water is hard. So I've been using tea. Right? And so it can be, and that's not something that came to mind right away. Luckily, my cousin makes tea.
Awesome tea, by the way. It's perfect how tea timing came on. I love it, man.
Yeah, but sometimes it can be helpful to get ideas and to help you to think outside of the box. Because even juice has a lot of people use juices in different ways and different cleanses, and this is where the flexibility is important. To find what works for you, because that's what's really important. No matter what worked for your friends, it's up to you to find what works for you.
But something that you have shared that makes me sort of, as I look at the remaining time for our discussion, if you're doing something, let's say exercise, for instance, and maybe you think you should be able to go into the gym the first day and crush it, as they say, and do an hour, when after the first minute you haven't even stretched and warmed up yet, you're exhausted, right? Well, you know what, maybe next month you're not only able to do that 1 minute, you're doing 10 or 30 minutes, and then over time you've now found that not only are you feeling better about yourself, you're actually being more conscious about your eating choices. So that, whole pan of cassava cake, becomes perhaps a half or a slice. And instead of every day, it may be just weekend after Sunday lunch. You start to make better choices as you start to gain, a perspective. Right there?
And I think one of the things, and we talked about words a little while ago, and I think one of the things really important is to take a look at the difference between what do I want and what do I need.
Sometimes I need what I want.
Cassava cake. What do I want? I want that wonderful taste of a wonderful cassava cake. Go ahead. Cut a little piece or have a bite or whatever it is. What do I need? I need to watch my health, and I need to do it appropriately. And the way I do that is to not overeat the cassava cake. It's that simple.
Yeah, where were you last month?
My friend told me something that stuck with me at one point. It said, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. And so I thought that was interesting. Yeah. And it might be that you're wanting something sweet, and and if that's a constant craving you have, what's going on at that time? right? Is that cassava cake? And sometimes it is just the sugar cravings. That's a real thing too.
Yeah. So nothing tastes as good as Skinny Field. Can I get her number? I should be. Susan, like, really?
This whole thing about get your act together, I think it has to start, how do we perceive ourselves?
Yeah.
What do I see me as being right now? And then I look closely at what do I need? What do I honestly need? Not want. Want is so different. Yeah, I want a nice car. To be honest, big deal. What I need is to be able to pay my bills for the car I have. I look at what I need. That's how you get a degree of satisfaction in life.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it. And as you close as Dr. Warden, just remind people not only how to get the information, but perhaps through you, let's say to our listeners, as they've done in the past, if there are ways that we can facilitate other discussions of topics that are important to them that they would like us to explore, reach out to you and let us know, all right?
Yep. So you can find our topics on drbodden.com. It's also on Dr. Alexandra Bodden on Facebook and Instagram. If you have ideas for topics or things you'd like to hear, you can email me, abodden@oncourse.ky or alexandra.bodden@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and hear what's important to you as we're building our schedule for this year.
And I really appreciate coming on, because I'm thinking more and more, whether it's exercise, education, employment, or whether it's just us looking at our homes and saying, you know what, I want to clean out the shed. It might even be the house. It might be that thing that we call a shed in the backyard that probably has just been there forever. Small steps, and pick the day that's convenient for you and set aside half an hour. There was a space I was cleaning the other day and I'm going, I have no idea where to start in this thing. After 3 consecutive days of doing stuff, I'm going, wow, I can actually see.
Nice.
But am I there yet? No, it's like that Farnwell Drive. Are we there yet? But we're getting there, right? Small, bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thanks so much, Dr. Bodden. And next month, as you shared, resources are always available, even through the government, free counseling center and the like.
Yep, so counseling centers available. They are at 949-8789. I don't know if they're doing walk-ins again, but give them a call and they can set you up with an appointment. Of course, any emergencies, the emergency room at HSA with a hotline with Crisis Center 943-CICC. And Alex Panton Foundation does have their support groups that run on the weekends. There's one online for teens and one for adults as well. You can find their information, Alex Panton, on the Facebook as well as the Instagram.
Right. We have phenomenal resources. We're finding that we are not just more amenable and receptive, we're accessing, and let's utilize it, because even the best of us, you look at the elite athletes, they still train, right? And they try to improve. And how many of us would actually ever get to that in our wildest dreams, right? But that first step puts us in a direction if we're moving forward with the right momentum. So let's do it.
Well, I think the two sides of the story are so powerful that Simone Biles at the Olympics said, hey, this is way too much weight on my shoulders. I can't handle it. Sorry, but I got to walk off in the middle of the competition. The world sat up and went, what in the world was that? The bottom line we got to remember is she came back a little while later and won another medal.
See,
it isn't about giving up and yielding and everything gets terrible. It's about you take the time to take care of yourself, then you can do even better.
It's not unlike the person who, was working in one area, went back to school to pursue something else, whatever that thing is, Could be complementary, it could be completely different. It's about focus, strategy, commitment. All right, well, thanks very much, Dr. Warden.
Yeah,
and Mr.
thank you
Terry.
for having us.
Appreciate it, man.
My pleasure.
I'll see if there's any cassava cake remaining. And just so that it doesn't spoil, I'll use it so that, have motivation as a kid. What I really want and what I really need. What's that song? What I really want, what I need. Is to take their break while I think about the chocolate and sea salt. All right. Call us after the break and let's hear from you. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh. At Subway, we caramel a lot about our customers, so we decided to give you 2 treats in one with the new Caramel Apple Cookie. Enjoy cinnamon apples, caramel bits, and salted caramel crunch baked in, and topped with a drizzle of caramel-flavored icing. Gooey, crunchy, and yummy. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious Caramel Apple Cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert, available for a limited time at all Subway locations. Subway, eat fresh.
Yes, sir, and all of you don't give up on the good work either.
Right. We won't, man. We won't.
All right, thank you, sir.
God bless.
Merry Christmas, Radio Cayman, all your staff.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too, sir.
All right, sir. Bye.
Bye. You know, that caller, like so many, just listen to the voice. Hear the words, but listen to the voice and understand the appreciation of what life is. No matter where you are right now, even me, you know, there are days you might find that even me, I might have a bad day, you know. But it's never a bad day if you're here, because where there's life, there's hope. And where there's hope and you have hopeful expectation, well, life can be even better.
I pray you'll be ours and watch us where we go and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. Let this be our prayer when we lose our way. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe.
Sento che ci salverai.
Yes, sir, it's still day number 1, you kick, sir.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks very much for joining us. You know, and that was our way of showing our love and appreciation for all of us, and in particular to Mr. Dolan Hunter. And as many of us have now publicly come to know, you know, he's passed on to a better place. You know, our thoughts, hearts, and prayers are with his family and with all of our communities. And it's something interesting that as I look at times like this, it reminds us of the strength in our community and the one word that unifies us. And I'm so glad that so many of you have been so quick to use the word. It unifies us. L-O-V-E. Now, it's probably said in a different way in different languages for those who may have studied theology and may have seen it in the Greek, that there are many forms of love. And perhaps the agape love, the love that we have for each other. There's the romantic love, and there's all the other things. And sometimes we don't have it. Like many, Mr. Dolan epitomized the notion that we should champion the causes of others. He often would call, and he said, no hesitation about sharing his own opinion. He thought that the political leadership should address a particular issue. I don't believe he ever once intended to offend anybody, but he said, this is how he sees it, and it was important to share it. I remember the concerns about the roadways and the sidewalks, the coverers or lack thereof going into the hospitals here as well as on the BRAC, and many things. And they were addressed from ensuring that television and radio services were given the same level of attention and importance on the BRAC as it is on Grand Cayman. And there are people like him in many societies that unfortunately we don't value, appreciate, nor recognize until long after. Thankfully, I believe he felt, and I pray that he did, not just from us here at Radio Cayman, but from the wider community, that we value what he was saying. Could we ask that we take his legacy and apply it to our lives? See how we ourselves can individually do things that are positive and productive, constructive and deliberate through a concerted, consistent effort to improve the lives. Let's give all that we have to our fellow man. And no, I don't mean just, male, mankind, humanity. Let us not sit idly by and let political despots, people who believe because they wear a uniform or have a title or hold some office that they themselves are the blueprint of all intelligence, good ideas, or effort. Sometimes, figuratively, and I say it this way because it should cause us to, consider our mindset. They need to be slapped upside the head, figuratively, given a wake-up call, because sometimes they've lost their ways. But other times, we need to draw alongside them because they're the lone voice crying in the wilderness, trying to get us not, running around screaming but the sky is falling, or like the boy who cried wolf, all those little things that we heard one time. But they are genuinely screaming and shouting, jumping up and down and saying, do you realize what is happening, and so on. Sometimes they need the support as well. Sometimes they lack the courage, and sometimes they just beat down and say, you know what, why bother? I'm just going to be like everybody else. Let me go along to get along. Well, thankfully, people like Mr. Dolan existed. People like Mr. Dolan still exist. And in a time such as this, we need to draw on that strength, that courage, that conviction, that desire to serve the community even more so in that positive way. And he did it in his own way. He did it in such a way that we saw sometimes he called, and by the next day, the thing was addressed. Not because he, in his mind, was important, but because he had the presence of mind, the confidence, the strong belief that this was so important for the community, not for him. And unfortunately, it wasn't that it wasn't an important issue. It was just people just didn't see it. Because how many times we pass by something and say, oh, but don't worry, somebody else will take care of that. Somebody else will make that call. And that person says, oh, don't worry, somebody else will. But nobody does. And the thing is so obvious and has been in existence for so long that it's been taken for granted and it's ignored. And what may have been a simple little, crack in the road, oftentimes, would lead, right, over time, to become this big, not just a pothole anymore. Can I use the phrase we would say, a cow well, right? But we drive around it. We find ways to, cope with it. Well, let's address it. And Mr. Dolan reminded us of the importance to not ignore those things. And I'm so glad that he didn't care, so to speak, of getting any kind of public accolades. He just thought it was important to do the right thing because it was the right thing to do. And if I may infer from his actions, he probably ascribed to a notion that I know that many of us take on board. Something needs to be done. If not now, when? If not me, who? And maybe that's more of us need to do that. If you think of his comments relative to the airport and the covering that should come there, and the idea that as a country, as a government, as individuals, we spend money sometimes, believing we spend it in the right way, but we're not getting value for it. So is there a way to spend more or to spend less, but to get more out of what we spend, to prioritize what we spend in? Would you, think of it this way. You have an X amount of money to spend, and you got two choices. You can spend it on something that has some immediate satisfaction and gratification, or the same amount on something else that would give you longer term fulfillment, be more beneficial. Many of us would probably choose the former because it's easier. Well, I believe it was the U.S. President Kennedy who said, we choose not sometimes to do the things because they're easier, but probably because they're hard. They're seemingly impossible, but they're important. So we move and press on. Maybe as he gave the speech about why we're going to the moon, that may cause some people to think in a different way. But Why is it that many of our parents have sacrificed so much to give us a chance at life, to invest in our education? Because they believe that was important for us. Now that we are there, what are we doing with it? Dr. Borden earlier asked the question, you want an education. Well, great. But why? And what are you going to do with it? Now, I say this to recognize that increasingly, not just in Cayman, but sadly, seems to be the instance that in Cayman, it happened in Nevada. But many of us are being discouraged. Our children are being discouraged about pursuing, education beyond high school, going to college, being told, well, why do you want to go into that debt? There's no employment. Well, the education isn't just a piece of paper. It's the experience that you get from acquiring that education. It's the learning and the development. Think to our seafarers who left there, some in their early teens, some not even, legally the age of majority, and they travel the high seas. Now, there are many stories that they're told, and some of them are probably exaggerated. Some of the things that may have happened we probably never hear of, because I'm sure there were levels of abuse and bullying, to use today's language. But there were also some interesting things that don't amount to adventure, but education and experience. But think as well, not just sailing on the oil tankers and the like, or running the tugboats up and down the riverways throughout the U.S. But think of going out to Mosquito Key. Some of them, because their father, grandfather, their uncles were in charge of the boat. Some because they found themselves having to be, quote unquote, the man of the house, helping to help the family, being obligated to go maybe 11 and 12 years old. Now, we look at our own communities and we see some young boys who are much more experienced and knowledgeable, to put it nicely, than some boys that are twice their age. The 10, 11-year-old who's very competent in the kitchen, who we say are very industrious and can go in the yard and help and do things, to others who are 30 and 40 and really, as my mama would say, could really benefit from taking an ambitious tablet. A little ambition tablet. Well, let me hear from you. What are your thoughts? 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Again, our deepest love, respect, honor to Mr. Dolan. Thank him for his concerted, very consistent call to serve the community, to remind us of what is important. And whether we liked what he said, agreed with it, or thought that he was being helpful, the fact is that, I say proof is in the pudding, and many times, as he said, whether they like it or not, this is something that needs to be addressed, and more than likely, as more often than not, it was beneficial to many. So, can we do likewise? There are many ways to approach things. The question is, are we going to take the initiative, commit the time to ensure that we do likewise? It's open line here on Talk Today, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261, as we share your thoughts with us. It's a good day, and I think that the more of us that look at the importance of what has to happen, it's a couple of WhatsApp messages that we want to share with our listeners, and we want to get you guys involved in our discussions, as I look at this quick, WhatsApp message that came through this person. Well, yeah, I can share this. They said, not necessarily read it as it is, right? But let me, with great respect to the person, I think this is good stuff. This says, in paraphrasing, this says that too many of us are too afraid, not just of being called out, but sometimes for being excluded. Some of us are too afraid of what others will think, so we fail to act. Maybe we need to be more afraid of what the end has in store for us. Well, that may be inferred in certain ways, but for me, perhaps look at it from that perspective. You just pause, Miss Susan? Stop what you're sharing us? All right. Well, I tell you what, the camera back talk is a good thing. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza, open Monday to Friday 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain deeply intertwined as one. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, has remained stable, strong, and deeply rooted in the community. The past 2 years have been very difficult, but they have taught all of us the value of family and embracing our loved ones. This 2022, Savannah Pharmacy encourages everyone to get in touch with your roots, embrace your heritage, show some extra love to your neighbor, and make the year a memorable one. Time is precious. Cherish it and those you love. Savannah Pharmacy, always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336 or WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045.
How do I lose weight and keep it off?
I can't just eat salads. Have you tasted my family's rundown? And oh, what about the turtle meat?
These are common questions I hear from people when it comes to weight loss. Learn how to lead a healthier lifestyle, the one you desire, and successfully manage your weight with my proven step-by-step process and my new book, New Shoes, A Journey of Self-Discovery.
Working with Donna has helped me create a healthier lifestyle. Old habits are no longer a challenge. If you're looking for help in managing life, reducing weight, and maintaining a lifestyle that fits your wellness goals, Donna Mitchell is the coach you need.
New Shoes, A Journey of Self-Discovery has been tried and tested on hundreds of participants in the Cayman Islands and is available on Amazon and Kindle. Order your copy today. Visit inspiredwithdonna.com for more details.
Due to the high number of COVID cases in the community, Water Authority Cayman is encouraging customers to conduct as much business as possible online or over the phone and avoid coming into the office. Need to pay a bill? You can do it online. Just visit our website, www.waterauthority.ky, and click on the Pay My Bill button. Are you experiencing service issues? Contact our customer service team via the phone on 949-2837 or email info@waterauthority.ky. Don't forget to practice good hygiene by washing your hands frequently with soap and water. For updates from the Water Authority, visit our website, www.waterauthority.ky, and our social media pages.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thank you so much for joining us here in this edition of Talk Today. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. Let's share a couple of WhatsApp messages. Here's this first one from one of our listeners, and I want to invite you to use the opportunity. What they say, make hay while the sun shines. Sometimes we hear that and we don't even quite appreciate how important, and more importantly, how urgent it may be. And I'm not saying that just for you. Too many times we believe we have more than what we, time than we do. This person writes, I feel the Caymanians today are actually forced to get a tertiary education. It's one of the few people I know of today that have their parents encouraging them not to pursue further education. I believe the real problem for young people today is that many of them are being forced to go into business or finance. So as that person writes, is that one of the challenges then, that in our homes, not enough of us are encouraging our children, our siblings, each other to pursue tertiary education or to do and excel, very early on. By the same token, are we also putting a lot of pressure and expectations, unrealistically so, and unreasonably so, on them? But the person says maybe it's in the homes. But what if it's not just the homes? What if it's the coaches in whatever sport? The other parents? What, sadly, if it's in the schools as well? I've heard allegations of such, And what if it's, as a few of you have shared, that it would appear that in some schools or in some classes, among some teachers, that they're openly and actively encouraging some students while openly and actively discouraging others. Now, that would be interesting. We think back to, what was it they said, creaming off the crop that some societies seem to approach. Or we stream, little things that we would do and we accept to be okay. Well, it's not. I think to those of us who may have recognized that we blossom a little bit late in life, maybe we only started to mature, to grasp that thing, not in our teens, but maybe in our 20s or 30s. Some people take a while to get where they're going, to get up to speed. Some people, it just takes other people to show them something. You're trying to learn something. Maybe it's not just you. Maybe it's being how it's presented. The teacher, for argument's sake, not just that teacher that's in the classroom, but that instructor. But maybe it's your mindset, your receptiveness to it. We shouldn't write off people, I think the only time when there's no hope is when you're no longer here. Where there's life, there's hope, we say. Hey, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. As we go into the break for our headline news at 2, let's share this other WhatsApp. I will read it as it is sent to us. It says, citizens in the Cayman Islands will be joining with nations, with millions of others around the world who are standing against unconstitutional, tyrannical vaccine mandates on the 22nd of January this year in a movement called Worldwide Demonstration. The Cayman Islands demonstration will be held on Saturday, the 22nd of January, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in front of the Governor's House. Young, old, parents, children, vaxxed, unvaxxed, civil servants, private sector employees, anyone and everyone is coming together to stand against these tyrannical mandates that are destroying our lives. You're invited to join us to stand for our freedoms. Together, we are free. Please bring your own signs. Now, I've had a few people share this with me and share their perspectives on it. And it's interesting to see how it's been sort of received. And as a few you have referenced, it's about freedoms. It's about democracy. It's about the notion that at the end of the day, we need to appreciate what's important and that respect that we should have for self and for others. And if we think back to the idea that there are many times people say things and, we don't want to hear it. You saying something again? Look at what you say. As opposed to respecting that there are these freedoms that give people, the opportunity to say some things, and that needs to be preserved, protected, and promoted. Hopefully, in a respectful, responsible way. But we seem to allow people to, get up in their face and carry on just because they're who they are. But that quiet, diminutive person who's saying something good, we castigate. We don't need to have that anymore. All right. After our news, we wanted to make sure our phone lines are working. So you're going to call and share your thoughts with us. I'm going to talk about life and living. We're going to talk about the notion that if we're going to be better, we got to do more consistently and deliberately to make it better. If you ever tried to get from one point to the next by just staying stationary, you're willing yourself, I'm going to move from this point in this room to the next point. It may be possible. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I just say I've never seen it. And until I do, I'm not sure that it's achievable. But nothing they say is impossible, or rarely, maybe with the exception of a biological man giving birth, but who knows. But even with that, if you want to move from the part of the room that you're in to the other part of the room, not even to the next room, you got to get up and get moving. So think about that. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your
your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Effective today, January 18th, the price of a COVID-19 PCR test with the Health Services Authority has been reduced to $75 CI, previously $120. Certified lateral flow tests, LFT, are $25, only where the Public Health Department has required the testing take place, such as isolation quarantine exit testing or PCR confirmation of a positive lateral flow test, will the cost be borne by government. For these testing times and community locations, visit hsa.ky. In international news, a deadly drone attack in the heart of the United Arab Emirates capital has thrust the Middle East into uncharted waters at a time when the region's leaders have sought to heal years-long rifts. 3 people were killed when the strikes hit fuel trucks near the airport in Abu Dhabi on Monday, causing multiple explosions. Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels quickly claimed the attacks. The blast from the volcano could be heard in Alaska, and the waves crossed the ocean to cause an oil spill and 2 drownings in Peru. The startling satellite images resembled a massive nuclear explosion, and yet, despite sitting almost on top of the volcano that erupted so violently on Saturday, the Pacific nation of Tonga appears to have avoided the widespread devastation that many initially feared. In its first update since the eruption, the government said Tuesday it has confirmed 3 deaths, 2 local residents and a British woman. And Microsoft says it plans to buy major games company Activision Blizzard in a deal worth $68.7 billion. It would be the biggest acquisition in the company's history and is expected to be finalized in 2023. The move means Microsoft will take ownership of gaming franchises like Call of Duty, Warcraft, and Overwatch. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you very much for joining us, and thanks to Miss Susan. She always allows the day to go down much better sometimes, a little chuckle here and there. Says, honey makes the medicine go down a lot better. And honey, I'm just kidding. 949-837, 1-800-534-8255. Isn't it interesting? Maybe it's other parts of the world. I had a friend that were from the southern part of the U.S., and words like that we use in Cayman, like darling and honey and dear, words that they would use as well. And she was saying that, when she, this is an elderly lady, I guess we would say one of the southern gems, when she would speak, there wasn't an issue till once there was someone visiting from somewhere else and thought that her language, wasn't really appropriate, even though she would use it in relation to other women or to men. And it transpired once while visiting here that something similar happened. And again, it's probably likewise across all districts, but in some of our districts, a lot of the older men would say, my dear, or honey, or darling child, and words that had no other connotation than a term of endearment. Not always that way for some, but in many instances, that's what it's like. To prompt, if I could put it that way, discussion, and that's being kind to the word, because someone felt that word choice was demeaning and improper and inappropriate. And as the elderly southern lady was listening, she said, the problem is that people sometimes spend so much time, I'm paraphrasing, worrying about other people and getting offended by them that they should probably look at it. And she turned to the lady and said, you're talking about our language, but have you ever thought about how offensive your face appears to others? And man, you should have been there. It was a good day. The elderly, even though, that may be cause many to be offended, I can see that in her instances. She says, she's glad that she's got to that age now where, according to laws, she'll be legally eligible to retire. She can go in and get the senior discounts. And our prayer is that she's not just have a presence of mind and the health and strength, but that she can continue. And if she can make it to 100 and still be healthy and not a burden, that would be great. Because age, in her mind, being able to live healthy and see those years was a reward for good life. Now, sometimes the notion that maybe you've outlived your usefulness and you outlived your finances. But think about it. Wouldn't it be nice that you're 100 years old, still very active, and your great-great-great-grandchildren are around and you can tell them stories about things? Chances are, correcting some of the misinformation that is out there by the same people that we trust and believe to give us accurate information. They're revisionists, as they were. They rewrite history in such a way that they paint a nice picture because they no longer want the truth to be shared. They want to look good in the narrative. Well, the challenge is, if it wasn't so, it shouldn't go so. So let it be so. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. WhatsApp 925-3261. It's interesting that in a Christian society, and we say that Cayman certainly was once and trusted it is, we talk about, you dare to be a Daniel. Where are the Daniels? Well, how many of us are so afraid of our shadows that we are reluctant to even question anything? Knowing that Peter and Paul and Mary and Jane and the rest of them that did, what happened to them, so we don't have the courage to do it. But ask yourselves, if our parents and their parents didn't have the resilience and the resolve, didn't, willingly make the sacrifice, give all, and service, would we be where we are? And as bad as we have it, would it be worse if it wasn't for their deliberate willingness to forego to help us? I say that to share that, and I hope this does not in any way, cause any of us in a level of discomfort. But a friend recently reminded that, a few of the siblings were given property of significant value right here in Grand Cayman, and some of the siblings immediately sold the property and got a lot of money. Some put it to good use, and some put it to better use. And then some of the siblings decided they were going to keep it. Now, they could sell it today and make even more, even with inflation. But by having that property, it adds value, it has sentimental value, it has economic value. There are things they can do with it, and in time, maybe they can develop it and it becomes income producing, or they can just keep it like it is and enjoy it as it is. And perhaps the next generation can build on it. Well, the ones that sold and the ones that kept, he shares that there's sometimes some interesting discussions, put it this way, when the families come together. Now, let's make it easy. It's 4 individuals and each get an equal share. 2 sell and 2 keep. Well, you've had yours. It's like the notion, everybody gets an equal sized piece of cake. Some eat one little piece now and save some for later. Some eat it all now and wish they had some later. Well, you can't eat yours and expect to come and get the person who was willing to, eat it in moderation. It's going to last for a bit. They don't need to be consumed then and there. We need to ask ourselves, are we looking only for today and for ourselves? Or are we building wealth and a legacy, a lasting, meaningful legacy for generations? If we think of the callers, in particular the 2 gentlemen that called yesterday, the younger one and then the one that just a few years, older, who talked about the plight of home ownership, the prospect that finding an affordable land, being able to build, is that something that is still realistic? Can they, realize that? Now, there are many of us who might say, well, this notion of everybody owning a home might not necessarily be the attainable goal, should not even be the objective. If it isn't, well, what are we doing to address it? Because housing, safe, clean, secure housing for all of us should be important. There are many countries that have wrestled with that and perhaps come up with viable solutions. Are we looking at it? Or are we only concerned about how much we can sell our properties for, how much revenues the government can get by doing certain things? And there would be some who would quickly interject, well, it can't be because all the concessions successive governments have given away over the years, that but for that, the project itself wouldn't be, as financially viable. Now, if that's the case, why we do not to the so-called, quote-unquote, foreign investor? Questions and discussions that need to quickly be had, not with a view to divide, but with a view to make, very deliberate, conscientious decisions. And if we go back to the prospect of home ownership, how we are looking at housing, are we considering the importance? A friend shared that through marriage, I guess, his family decided to relocate to Hawaii to be closer to that side of the family, and to appreciate that housing there was a bit pricey, and they were wrestling on this a few decades ago with a similar issue, and wanted to build what would have been something without question, much easier to do back on the mainland within the U.S. And again, not understanding the situation there, realized that even though Hawaii is a state, they couldn't do what they wanted to do. As he described it, it would be akin to you building one house and on the same property, even though the land was big enough to physically accommodate this other structure as attached to the house. The zoning, as I understand it, precluded, it did not allow this other structure to be built, even though it was attached. The idea for doing, as he shared, for them doing that was to not only provide, extended accommodation for the grandparents, but to ensure that the cultural sort of practice of that family, as it were, given the ancestral links, was to have the extended families close together. The parents had a way to keep an eye on the grandparents, but also had an opportunity for the grandchildren to know the grandparents and interact, and then by default sort of built-in babysitters so that the three generations could live together. Now, are those similar issues that we're seeing here as we may have experienced in other jurisdictions? Are there ways to accommodate that? If we drive, we'll see some residential communities that have 3 stories and, for want of a better word, an apartment or a flat on each floor in 1, 2, and 3. Then there are some that may have, over 2 or 3 floors, one residence. We can build a commercial and hotel accommodation seeming up to 10 stories. Is it a time that we look within our communities, covenants aside, as to how we're utilizing it? Stories have been had where someone goes in and builds a 10, 15, 20,000 square foot house with a maid's quarters, a granite flat, with 15 bedrooms and all sorts of things over sprawling acres. But for whatever reason, we can't necessarily build, something that would accommodate extended families. Would seem kind of foolish. Then there are those who find a way to skirt the law and create something within something, and then we seem to turn a blind eye. Well, the question is, should we look at it? And should we be looking at it very conscientiously and immediately? That land that is almost beyond the reach of some now may in short order become totally beyond the reach of many if it's not addressed. Is the answer in restricting, as some have shared, who can own how much? Perhaps not. Is the answer in allowing greater densities across areas? Can it be done in a way that adds greater value, not because it creates greater return, but because it provides a greater sense of community? Now, sure, there are many of us with great ideas, but we're not being tapped. There are many of us who have shared for many years, but just because, as Miss Clara would say, you're not going to listen to me because it's free, we don't take it on board. Is that the challenge? 949-8037, toll free with the compliments of Flo at 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. And then as we look at where we are, almost the end of January, as it were, and this new year, is it a continuation of the last 2? Have we become so confounded by what's transpiring that we no longer pay attention? Have we become so, as it were, conditioned by everything that we no longer understand that there was once a life where it was better, it was different? And have we given up and lost all hope? Well, I trust not. Final break to take, and when we return, we ask you to rejoin us. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Now open on the sister island, Brack Medical Supplies. Located at 403 Gerard Smith Avenue, next to the Alexander Hotel. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Telephone number 948-2228. Brack Medical Supplies.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. And, maybe I'll ask Susan, she may whisper it in my ear, she may decide to say it publicly. But as I said, I can ask her publicly and she decide how she responds. When we look at life, right, and we see all of the interesting things, the frailty at times, the unpredictability at times, the desires in our hearts that motivate us, the things that captivate us, the things that sometimes propel us, that we believe that but for these things, life has little or no value or meaning. And as we ask of you who are listening in the 11 and a half minutes of today's production, it's a new year. What is it that we're going to resolve? Because we make these resolutions, we're going to demonstrate through an active engagement to make better, to improve, to transform, to renew, to do that thing that causes us as a people, as individuals, to get a better quality of life. For many, it's the idea of exercise. For some, it's, I always wanted to know my grandmother's recipe. How do I do that? First you need to write it down. Maybe you have it. Maybe you're fortunate enough to actually have it, but you never tried it. For some, it's perhaps, despite what seems to be not just very expensive to travel, the unpredictability of it, but all that you have to endure. Now, strangely enough, if we are remaining within our own 3 islands, we may not realize that there's a brave new world out there. And when we move beyond our borders, we start to get to a space where we think, wait a minute, there's something going on weird in Cayman that's not happening elsewhere. Here was an example. There are those of you who just over the Christmas and even in the last quarter of last year shared that in the UK, limited to the UK, you were able to attend events. You were doing things where had they were in Cayman, and even some of the people who live in Cayman that attended were attending them in a way that would appear as if there was no, end of this thing that's going on now, where people are wearing masks and doing all these other things. Not to suggest, imply anything other than let's be absolutely safe and smart in our endeavors. But when we move beyond Cayman and the airport and the protocols here, the things were seemingly a semblance of order, depending on where we went. Was it a part of the US? And which part? Was it in the UK? Or different parts of Europe? And so, seemingly, as a lady was sharing with me, we need to kind of open our eyes and see what's going on. Let's go to the phones, huh? Welcome, good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rambo. How are you today, man?
Good. They often do home improvement, interior painting.
All right, man. Good stuff.
Fantastic cooking. But different is done in the headlines now with the guest, the previous guest, Dr. Lockhart.
Mm-hmm.
They approve the decriminalizing of the herbs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And obviously, this part of the hemisphere, the capitalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the line is opposite communism. See?
Well, is it the opposite of capitalism, communism?
I think so. Right?
Okay.
But, I mean, that's my father's opinion.
Right, fair enough.
That about if I of it, the summer of it. But turning equal, it makes sense now, right? And for years now, people stalling and obstructing it, right? On a subconscious note.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this new government, whoever the other part government, their motive or MO is the paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
You see where I'm from?
Okay.
Turning the whole delicate and bigger bit is intricate, simple kind of thing, minor. You know? So I hope whenever you have the guest again, the entrepreneur and the big fella, right? And the lawyer, you come to a conclusion. So whoever in Parliament approve it. You understand? So that's simple.
Mm-hmm.
You know where I'm from? It's simple.
Yeah.
Like I called yesterday about it. It's simple. You know, that's the simplest of that. Yeah.
You know, as I listen to you, I'm looking at something quickly, and I recognize that this whole notion, and I'm glad that as you reference, you know, Ormer IV and Dr. Lockhart and Mr. Prentice Pannon and others that we've had a few discussions recently, this idea that maybe it's a quick, easier win initially, you know, incremental steps, some would say, to move towards decriminalization and then consider full legalization. But I always wonder to what extent we're putting more and more pressures on ourselves, creating the opportunities for people to abuse whatever discretions they think they may have or may be given without fully achieving the true objectives, you know. It's an issue that in and of itself, I think, evokes in many of us a response that perhaps isn't as fully formed, fully informed, and fully ventilated, because we don't necessarily stop, you know, and look at it as objectively and dispassionately as we could. So, from your perspective, do you think that the Cayman community across all three islands are looking at that issue with the level of dispatch relative to, say, the medicinal value, the food aspect of it, if that can help in terms of source of protein and the like, or even other uses? Or is it just that some see it and conclude, oh, that's them bunch of boys want to do this because, you know, that's the fad or that's their custom and habit?
So, you know, the great came on politics, right? Differently in a certain state, from the get-go, right? Therefore, in the memorial, right? Right? But then different, you know, being an intergenerational time, though, right? So, like I said again, starting my belief in it, right, of it, and my drive of it is fully legalized now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, really true. Like I said, so I pay $1,000 for one here or a bump, and they reverse my money. But then again, so that my justice. Yeah. But the further the point you make, no, I understand a different aspect of society. Lifestyle, you know. But you know, every generation gap is 25 years. You see what I'm saying? So, like say for example, tomorrow, I know whoever she is, I know it. Indulge her in that lifestyle now. You know what I'm saying? But however, you need to consider, like I said again, you need to consider, everybody consider it now. He left behind, came out behind now. Came out behind now. We are police state. So then 19 years ago over Havana, right? The waterfront, every 100 feet, there's a police. Communism. We're in a police state. Okay, interdiction tactics, darling. Where come from?
Yeah. But
GPS.
Okay, good. Sorry, go ahead, please. Sorry.
No, caught is missing. at the CPS, right? Headquarters. Who cares? Right? Who cares? You understand? And the herbs, it is a plant. But the narcotics who are involved with it, who cares? Right? About went and beans, they were too inside of it. And the one thing consider of decriminalization, same as the head shrink, the psychiatrist. You know where I come from?
Yeah.
So it's simple. You know, so it me raise that back, beat myself, my heart rate over it. You understand? So, for years, politicians, obstructing it, installing it, ignoring it. Right? Yeah. So, it gets time for the coffee brewing.
But I want to ask you though, because you've been a champion for it, and I'm wondering, from the perspective that if we were to move whatever direction that we move in, that we ensure quality control, and I'm thinking of that in relation to anything and everything that we put into our bodies, right? So from the perspective of you going into an office building where you work in, right, or a public space, and let's say it's an air-conditioned space, that we look at the indoor air quality, that we properly check it to make sure that there are no noxious fumes, maybe the carpets, the paint, whatever else in there, there's no off-gas in there making people sick, to the mold issue or whatever. So hopefully we're doing that to protect the people who, inhabit that space for work or for living or for whatever time that is, right? If we're doing that relative to the construction of spaces to make sure that their structural integrity is there, we're also doing it for the end user in terms of the indoor air quality, as an example. Could we also then look at it as we probably do with respect to the foods, as an aside? Take, for instance, the established restaurant, whether it's takeout only or only a small little space for sit down, 4, 6, 8, 10 people, small space, they have to go through not just licensing and inspection. And then you compare that to people, as has been alleged, who sell food literally from the backs of their cars, their car trunks, right? They go to job sites. We know that many of the restaurants have complained not just because of the potential anti-competitive nature, there's no licensing fees, no inspection, but the risk to the consumer of having this food prepared in a way that is not regulated, being served, there's no accountability, and the potential danger to health. So if we have things to look at how buildings are built, how they are maintained in terms of their quality, to the foods, should we know, when we're looking at cannabis, look very strongly at regulating through legislation and the like, and inspection and enforcement, that the product in whatever form is one of the highest quality. And when I ask that, we know that we've had allegations that importation, it's illegal, but it still comes into our shores, creates the potential for a lot of crime and criminal behavior and acts that could result in injury or loss of life in this importation, but also then in the consumption, because it's laced or combined with other things. Dr. Lockhart talked about, being treated, for want of a better word, with formaldehyde, right? So, yeah. So if that is an issue, should we not look at maybe putting in place a mechanism, a regime, some sort of way to ensure that the quality of the product is so heavily, managed in a way that the quality is of the very high standard, like we would with respect to food safety and handling, and ensuring that it's not just edible, but it's not gonna, make you sick when you do. To this thing that, however you use it, that they're quality control measures.
So I think, first of all, give me a minute, right?
Yeah, man. Of course, man.
The last 70 years, from 2005, came on, right? A lot of red tape and bureaucracy, strictly stringent, the whole 9 yards, right? And the friend I know, the last 3 years that I analyzed and observed, right? It came out going green, right? Going green. Paper bag, conservative, right? And lately now, resilience, right? That element. And we talked about food though, endorsement. Even the schools, right? The adolescents, they try obsolete, obese, right?
Obesity, yeah.
Yeah, they try to eliminate that. So with the comparison with the herbs now, Say for instance, you get planting right from overseas. You know that kind of force stuff now to keep a preservative. So by the homegrown, you see where I'm from.
Right.
So it up to the individual. So whenever this law approves, it's up to the individual to do their own thing. You know, because people like the impact, whatever. You understand? But like, I don't overseas though. They import crops or whatever. They keep in the shelves to preserve life. You understand? In have side effects eventually.
Right. Yeah, man. And I appreciate you sharing that, because it is for me about safety, public safety, also about anything to make sure that the people who can use something, let's say it's some drug like alcohol, that the age at which they access it should be a responsible age. Now, should that be increased from 18 to 21? Should it be the same for tobacco? Yeah, who knows? But are we having these discussions because of not trying to be a non-state and police everybody or the like, but about what is the sensible, responsible thing to do?
You more minute because you probably have sold online, right? And you're so wrapping up. But listen, my driver's license, right? I have a license when I was 17. So you abide by that. 18 alcohol, 18 herbs, but they say we pass that less than age of 25, right? Your brain mature. I don't know about that, right? But I smoked ganja when I was 9 years old, right? I would come to school now. You understand? All the fellas, you understand? But all one time. And I still here, and I was very athletic. I used to go taekwondo, swimming, football, three other activities, and like, people know that. And I was good in academics too. But I left for one, like I say. You see where I'm from? Right now, make it 18, because 18, right? The legitimate age, you're on your own. Like say for instance now, my child now, if she's 18, she have a boyfriend, hall. You understand? And run her away now, but you know what I mean? Hall. Or vice versa, or the me and my son, hall. Be responsible. So 18, it's 7 years from that, it's 25. So now we keep selling differently.
Yeah, man.
So I don't hold the time up. God bless you.
Bless you, man. God bless, man. More time, Bo. More time. Yeah, Colin makes a point, and the idea is how do we continue to invest in each other and take a vested interest so that at the end of the day we are our brother's keeper, we are partnering with each other to improve. And as we reflect on, what the last 2 years were like, are we pointing fingers and willing to hold culprits accountable? Are we also looking in the mirror and asking how much more and how much better we can do? Join us again tomorrow for more Talk Today right after the midday news and midday meditation. Come back with Mr. Art in the morning to start your day off. What better way, to be informed, engaged, and entertained, and to be a constructive, proactive, active participant in what is transpiring here. Until then, my friends, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Shaken yet standing firm.
I was not built to break.
This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman